Chosen one. What if I told you the battle you're still stressing over is already over? That you're not fighting for victory, you're walking in it. Stay with me, because by the end of this message, you'll understand why you've already won. Welcome, Chosen One. You've been carrying weight, like you're still in survival mode, questioning every step, wondering if you're behind, if you missed something, if the breakthrough is still miles away. But here's the truth. No one told you. It's already done. That thing you've been praying for, the freedom, the peace, the elevation, it's not waiting for you in some distant future. It's unfolding right now in ways your eyes can't yet see, but your spirit can feel. You've been conditioned to think that winning must look like exhaustion, like constant hustle, like visible trophies, and loud applause. But heaven doesn't operate by human timelines or noise. Heaven moves in silence, and you've been advancing even when it felt like standing still. Let me remind you of something powerful. The human mind only registers a fraction of what's happening around it. While you're focused on the challenges in front of you, God has already aligned victories behind the scenes. Doors are opening, favor is flowing, and battles have been fought on your behalf without you lifting a finger. You're not behind. You were never behind. You've been ahead because you've been chosen. All those moments you thought were setbacks, they weren't blocking you, they were positioning you. The silence wasn't abandonment. It was God clearing the noise so you could hear His confirmation. It's already yours. So before we dive deeper into this message, I want you to do something bold, not for me, but for yourself. If your spirit feels this truth, if something inside you is stirring, drop 9 to 99 in the comments right now. Not as a number, but as a declaration. Because 999 isn't just digits. It's a divine signal of completion of cycles, closing, of stepping into what's been waiting for you all along. And while you're here, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected to this space where truth isn't sugar-coated. It's spoken with authority. Because, Chosen One, this isn't just another motivational talk. This is a reminder of who you really are and why the victory was sealed long before the battle ever began. Let's walk through this together, because after today, you won't just hope you've won, you'll know it. Section 1. The day you rejected mediocrity. There's a moment quiet, almost invisible to the world, when everything shifts for a chosen one. It's not when you get the promotion. It's not when people start clapping for you. It's not even when you achieve something that others can see. No, the real victory happened the day you looked at the life handed to you and said, "This isn't enough." Think about it. How many people do you know who wake up every day living a script they never wrote? Following routines, traditions, expectations, never questioning if any of it was meant for them. It's like they're asleep with their eyes open. But you heard something they couldn't hear. That small, persistent voice in your spirit that whispered, "There's more. You weren't born just to survive this." That whisper was heaven's call. And the moment you listened, you shattered the invisible walls of mediocrity. Most people won't tell you this, but mediocrity isn't just about doing less. It's about accepting less than what your soul knows is possible. It's when you shrink to fit into spaces that were never designed to hold your destiny. And here's the thing. Rejecting mediocrity doesn't come with a parade. It comes with silence. With people looking at you like you've lost your mind because you dared to step outside of what's normal. But that's exactly when heaven starts paying attention. Not when you followed the crowd, but when you dared to walk alone. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." That's what you did, whether you realized it or not. The moment you stopped conforming, you aligned yourself with something eternal. Let me give you a real-life reflection of this truth. Ever heard of Howard Schultz? He grew up in public housing surrounded by poverty, expected to follow a path of survival like everyone around him. But one day, he saw something different, a vision that didn't exist yet. While others saw a coffee shop, he saw Starbucks, a global community experience. Did anyone understand him at first? No. Did they call him crazy? Absolutely. But he wasn't asking for permission. He was responding to a vision that didn't fit the mold. That's exactly what you did when you rejected mediocrity. You weren't being rebellious for the sake of it. You were responding to a divine call that others couldn't hear because their ears were tuned to comfort, not purpose. And let's be honest, after that awakening, life didn't get easier, did it? No, it got harder. Because the moment you step out of the system pushes back. Relationships start to feel distant. Jobs that once felt stable suddenly feel suffocating. You start noticing how shallow conversations really are. But that discomfort, that was your confirmation. You were never meant to blend in. You were designed to stand apart, Isaiah 61. Says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come." That light, the one that made you feel different, your whole life wasn't a flaw. It was your proof. So, if you've ever wondered why you couldn't settle, why average felt unbearable, why you kept questioning what others accepted without hesitation, this is your answer. You didn't miss out on anything by rejecting the script. You avoided a life that would have suffocated your purpose. And here's something deeper. When you chose to rise, you weren't just saving yourself. You became a blueprint for others, silently watching, wondering if they too could escape the cage of normal. Chosen one, understand this. The day you said no more to mediocrity was the day heaven said, "Now we begin." You thought you were just questioning life, but really you were answering a divine summons that had been written over you before you ever took your first breath. So now I ask you, what will you continue to reject that no longer aligns with your calling? Because once you've tasted purpose, you'll never be able to swallow mediocrity again. And that's why you've already won. Section 2. Resistance was your proof. Chosen one. Let's be honest. Have you ever asked yourself, why does it feel like life got harder the moment I started doing better? Why did people who once smiled at you start pulling away? Why did opportunities dry up just as you were stepping into your true self? Why did the whispers, the doubts, and the silent envy seem to grow louder when you began to rise? Here's the truth. Most people never realize. Resistance isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation you're finally on the right one. You see, the moment you awakened to who you really are, the moment you stopped playing small to make others comfortable, you triggered something in the atmosphere. Not everyone celebrates light when it shows up. In fact, light exposes things people would rather keep hidden. If you had stayed average, if you had blended in, no one would have flinched. But the moment your spirit started shining brighter than their insecurities could handle, they reacted. And let me be clear, it wasn't personal, it was spiritual. John 15:19 tells us plainly, if you belonged to the world, it would love you as its own. But as it is, you do not belong to the world. That's why the world pushed back. You didn't have to say a word. Your very presence convicted those who had settled. You reminded them not through preaching, but through simply existing, that they gave up on dreams they once held. And when people aren't ready to face their own reflection, they try to dim the mirror. That's why the gossip started. That's why doors closed. That's why you felt misunderstood even by those closest to you. But hear me clearly. That wasn't rejection. It was redirection. It was heaven's way of clearing the path, removing anyone who couldn't handle where God was taking you. Look at Florence Nightingale. Born into wealth, expected to live a life of luxury. But when she answered her divine calling to serve as a nurse, she faced ridicule, opposition even from her own family. Her resistance wasn't a barrier. It was a mirror reflecting how deeply her light disrupted the norm. That's your story too. Every betrayal, every closed door, every cold shoulder. It wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to reveal you. Psalm 23:5 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies." Notice God didn't remove the enemies. He let them watch you be elevated because their opposition was never powerful enough to block your blessing. It was only loud enough to announce it. And here's where many chosen ones stumble. They waste energy trying to explain themselves, trying to prove their worth, trying to get people to see what heaven already confirmed. But Proverbs 26:4 reminds us, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly." You were never meant to defend your light to those committed to misunderstanding it. Think about Chadwick Boseman. While silently battling cancer, he carried himself with grace, strength, and purpose. Critics mocked his appearance, questioned his health, but he never explained. He let his purpose speak louder than any rumor. That's the kind of quiet power you carry now. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your growth. Their discomfort with your elevation is not your burden to fix. Chosen one, understand this. Their resistance was their confession. A confession that they saw your greatness long before you fully stepped into it. Some feared you, some secretly admired you, and the most dangerous ones, they sat beside you pretending to support you while praying for your downfall. But none of it mattered. Because Romans 8:31 declares, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" The answer, no one. Every attack only sharpened you. Every lie only elevated you. Every attempt to stop you became a stepping stone beneath your feet. So the next time you think back on who left, who doubted, who tried to dim your light, smile. Because without knowing it, they announced your arrival before you even got there. You didn't just survive their opposition, you rose because of it. And that chosen one is why you've already won. Section 3. From Learner to Living Lesson. Chosen one. Let me ask you something. Have you realized yet that people aren't just listening to your words? They're watching your life. There was a time when you searched everywhere for answers. Books, mentors, sermons, quotes. You were hungry for wisdom, desperate to understand why your path felt so heavy, why your soul felt so different. But here's the shift no one warned you about. At some point you stopped being the student and became the lesson. You see, most people spend their lives collecting knowledge. They attend workshops, repeat affirmations, and seek guidance, but they never let that knowledge transform them. You, on the other hand, didn't just learn about resilience, you embodied it. You didn't just hear about faith. You walked through fire with it. You didn't just talk about healing. You became proof that it's possible. Isaiah 61:3 speaks of giving a crown of beauty instead of ashes. That's exactly what happened to you. Your story became a living, breathing testimony. People look at you now, and they might not know the full details of what you survived, but they feel something. They sense the quiet strength, the unspoken wisdom, the peace that didn't come from an easy life, but from overcoming battles that would have crushed most. Think of Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the horrors of the Holocaust, not by chance, but by clinging to purpose. He didn't just escape tragedy, he transformed it into a philosophy that healed millions. His book, Man's Search for Meaning, wasn't just words. It was his life distilled into wisdom. That's who you are now. You don't need to preach. Your presence is a sermon. Your steps are a roadmap for those still lost in their storm. And maybe you didn't even notice when the shift happened, when survival turned into mastery. When you stopped asking, Why me? And started walking like, of course me, I was built for this, James says, blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. You've stood the test, and now without even trying, you've become the example others look to when they wonder if they can make it through their own fire. But here's something important, chosen one. You don't have to explain how you got here. You don't owe anyone a breakdown of your process. Some will admire you, some will envy you, and some will misunderstand you entirely. Let them, because your life isn't a lecture, it's living proof. And those who are meant to learn from it will feel it without you saying a word. Look at Bethany Hamilton. At just 13 years old, she lost her arm in a shark attack. Most would have given up. But she didn't just return to surfing. She became a symbol of courage worldwide. Her story isn't powerful because she talked about resilience. It's powerful because she became resilience, just like you. You didn't just bounce back, you rose higher. You didn't just heal, you transformed into someone who carries unshakable peace, not because life spared you, but because you allowed the storms to refine you, not define you. So now, chosen one, here's your reminder. You're no longer searching for the path. You are the path for someone else. You're no longer quoting strength. You are strength in motion. And that's why you've already won. Because no one can take away what you've become. Section 4. The Death of Fear. Chosen one. Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, whose fear have I been carrying all this time? See, fear is sneaky. It rarely announces itself as fear. It disguises itself as logic, as being realistic, as playing it safe. And before you even knew who you were, the world had already wrapped you in a cloak of limitations, telling you what's too risky, what dreams are too big, and what paths are impossible. But here's the truth, that fear, it was never yours to begin with. 2 Timothy 1:7 reminds us, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. If fear didn't come from God, then where did it come from? It came from generations before you who settled for survival because they didn't know freedom was an option. It came from a society built to keep people small, obedient, and predictable. It came from voices that projected their own insecurities onto your potential, and you, chosen one, you did something rare. You questioned it. Most people never get that far. They feel fear and assume it's truth. They never pause long enough to ask, is this fear protecting me? Or is it imprisoning me? But when you dared to challenge it, when you looked fear in the face and said, you don't belong here, everything changed. Fear only thrives in silence and agreement. The moment you spoke truth to it, the illusion shattered. Look at Frida Kahlo confined to a bed after a horrific accident. Her body broken, her future uncertain. But instead of letting fear dictate her life, she turned pain into art, limitations into liberation. She didn't move from fear, she moved through it, and in doing so, she transcended it. That's exactly what you did. You stopped asking, what if I fail? And you started asking, what if I'm destined to fly? That internal shift from anxiety to alignment, from hesitation to holy confidence, is the reason fear no longer controls your steps. Sure, moments of doubt still visit you. That's human. But now fear is just a passing shadow, not the chain it once was. Isaiah 41:10 declares, do not fear, for I am with you. That's not a suggestion. It's a command backed by divine presence. And you obeyed it. You stopped living life as if fear was your compass. You stopped shrinking your dreams to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You stopped playing small to avoid judgment. Instead, you started building from faith, moving from calling and trusting that what God placed inside you was bigger than any what if the world could throw at you. Think about Malcolm X, a man who was once trapped by the world's labels, imprisoned by both bars and beliefs. But when truth found him, he shed every inherited fear and walked boldly into purpose. He didn't play safe, he played divine. And so did you, chosen one. Have you noticed how unstoppable you've become now that fear has lost its grip? Decisions flow easier. You don't overthink like you used to. You don't wait for the perfect moment, you create it. Because when fear dies, freedom begins. Psalm 27:1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" The answer is clear. No one. Nothing. And that's why you've already won. Not because fear never knocked, but because you stopped answering the door. You gave fear back. And in return, you claimed something eternal. Boldness, clarity, and unshakable peace. So now the only question left is, what will you build in a life no longer ruled by fear? Because when fear no longer leads, purpose takes over. Section 5. You stopped begging. You realized you are the source. It always starts the same way, doesn't it? You give, you show up. You pour yourself out, hoping, waiting for someone to notice, for someone to say, yes, you're enough. But here's the thing, chosen one. There comes a moment when your soul gets tired. Tired of waiting for doors to open. Tired of shrinking to fit invitations that never come. Tired of asking for a seat at tables that were never built for you. And that's when it hits you. Why am I begging for what I was born to create? You see, nobody tells you this growing up. You're trained to seek approval from parents, teachers, bosses, society. You're conditioned to believe that validation is currency, that without it, you're not worthy to shine, but chosen one. The day you stopped waiting for applause, the day you stopped chasing yes from people who couldn't even recognize their own worth, that's when everything shifted. Luke 17:21 says, "The kingdom of God is within you, not around you, not in someone else's opinion. Within you realized you were never meant to seek power, you were designed to release it." Think about it. How many times did you overextend yourself, overgive, overexplain, overperform just to feel seen? And every time they withheld validation, you thought you had to try harder. But the truth was never about earning anything. It was about remembering who you were before the world told you to beg. Look at Nikola Tesla, a man decades ahead of his time, misunderstood, overlooked, even mocked. But he wasn't chasing recognition. He was plugged into a vision no one else could see. While the world ignored him, he kept creating because he knew the source wasn't external. It flowed from within. That's where you stand now. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. You walk in knowing you carry what that room is missing. You no longer seek love from empty wells. You are love overflowing. You no longer wait for opportunity. You create it. And here's the beautiful irony. The moment you stopped chasing validation, the same people who once overlooked you started paying attention. But by then you realized you don't need their attention anymore. Because when you know you're the source, you stop asking for permission to flow. Psalm 34:10 reminds us, "Those who seek the Lord lack no good thing." You don't lack. You never did. You were just taught to look everywhere but inside. Think of Taraji P. Henson. For years, she was told she was too much, too different, too loud for Hollywood's mold. But instead of dimming her light, she built her own stage. Now she's not just acting, she's producing leading opening doors for others. That's the energy you've stepped into. You're no longer knocking on doors. You're building houses. You're no longer performing to be chosen. You've remembered you were already chosen before. time began, Ephesians 1:4. Says he chose us in him before the foundation of the world. That means your worth was settled long before anyone had an opinion about you. So, chosen one, let this sink in. You're not here to ask for access. You are the access. You're not waiting to be seen. You're too radiant to be missed. And now that you've stopped begging, the real question becomes, what will you build from this place of divine authority? Because once you recognize that everything you sought was always within you, you stop surviving and you start creating kingdoms. That's why you've already won. Not because they finally see your value, but because you did. Section 6. The test didn't break you, it revealed you. Chosen one. You didn't ask for the battles. You didn't volunteer for the heartbreak, the betrayal, or the endless seasons where it felt like life just wouldn't let up. But they came anyway. And somewhere along the way, you probably wondered, why me? Why did the weight feel heavier on your shoulders than everyone else's? Why did life seem to test you over and over without a break? Let me tell you something that most never understand. You weren't being punished. You were being proven. See, heaven doesn't place divine assignments in untested hands. When you're chosen, you don't get average challenges because you're not called to live an average life. James 1:3 says, "The testing of your faith produces perseverance." But what they don't tell you is that perseverance isn't just about surviving, it's about becoming unshakable. Every time life tried to knock you down, it wasn't trying to destroy you, it was forging something eternal within you. Think about it. Anyone can smile when things are easy. Anyone can have faith when the sun is shining. But who are you when the sky falls? That's where your true identity was revealed. Not in comfort, but in the fire. Look at Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars. The system thought it could crush him, silence him, erase him. But prison didn't break him, it refined him. When he walked out, he wasn't bitter. He was built for leadership. That's exactly what happened to you. Every trial, every setback, every delay wasn't a detour. It was preparation, an unseen curriculum designed to stretch you beyond what you thought you could endure. And yes, there were moments you felt like giving up. Moments when the silence from heaven felt deafening. But you kept walking. Even if it was with tears in your eyes, you didn't fold. Isaiah 43:2. Promises. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. Notice, it doesn't say you'll avoid the fire. It says you'll survive it and come out without the smell of smoke. Chosen one. Have you noticed how things that used to shake you no longer move you? The things that once kept you up at night, now they barely register. Why? Because the tests that were sent to break you built you instead. Think of Beth Mead, the footballer who faced injury, doubt, and dismissal. She didn't let the setback define her. She trained harder, came back stronger, and became the best in her field. That's the power of endurance fueled by purpose. You see, most people avoid the fire, but you walked through it and came out gold. And here's the thing, God never wastes a test. Every tear, every unanswered question, every sleepless night, it all became part of the foundation you're now standing on. Peter declares, after you have suffered a little while, God will restore you and make you strong, firm, and steadfast. That's not just scripture, that's your story. You weren't just tested in public battles, you were tested in private wars no one else saw. And yet here you are, not only standing, but standing taller, wiser, and more anchored than ever before. So now, when life throws chaos your way, you don't panic. You recognize it for what it is. Confirmation that you're built for more. chosen one. The enemy threw everything at you, but heaven was watching. And every time you refused to quit, you wrote a legacy of resilience that no storm could erase. That's why you've already won. Not because it was easy, but because you didn't fold when it was hard. You were tested and you passed. Section 7. Silence became your loudest answer. There's a unique kind of power, chosen one. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind that doesn't argue, doesn't explain, doesn't chase validation. And somewhere along your journey, you discovered it. At first, you probably thought you had to defend yourself, prove your worth, correct every misunderstanding, make sure people knew your heart, your vision, your intentions. But over time, you realized something priceless. Silence speaks louder than any defense ever could. See, when you're truly aligned with purpose, you stop needing to be understood. You stop wasting breath on people committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer feel the urge to convince those who can't see beyond their own limitations. Proverbs 30:15 says, "In quietness and trust is your strength." And that's exactly where your strength matured. While others were loud in doubt, you became quiet in confidence. They questioned your path. They whispered behind your back. They expected you to fall apart just to prove them wrong. But you didn't. You let your walk do the talking. And now those same voices, they've gone quiet. Not because you silenced them, but because your elevation did. Think of Tyler Perry, living out of his car. Dreams dismissed, ridiculed for believing in something no one else could see. He didn't clap back. He didn't explain his vision to those too small to grasp it. He built in silence. Now, he owns one of the largest studios in the world. That's exactly the kind of quiet power you stepped into, chosen one. There's a sacred confidence that comes when you no longer need applause to validate your direction. When you realize that real power doesn't perform, it produces. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. And now the results speak volumes. Have you noticed how the rooms you enter feel different now? How the same people who doubted you now watch you in curiosity, maybe even regret. But here's the beauty. You don't need their recognition anymore. You've outgrown the need to be seen, because you know that purpose makes you visible when it matters most. Matthew 5:16 reminds us, "Let your light shine before others." It doesn't say shout, it says shine. And shine is exactly what you did, without noise, without retaliation, without lowering yourself to prove a point. Think of Amanda Gorman. Dismissed by many before she ever spoke a word. But when she stood on that stage and let her gift flow, the world listened because light can't be ignored. That's your story too. You didn't fight for attention. You aligned with your assignment, and that alignment made you undeniable. So now, chosen one, the next time doubt tries to rise around you, remember, you don't need to respond. You don't need to explain, because your existence is already the answer. You've already won, not by shouting louder than the critics, but by rising so high that their voices can no longer reach you. Section 8 loss was never loss, it was alignment. Chosen one. How many times did you mourn something, thinking it was taken from you? A relationship, a job, a friendship, an opportunity, and in that moment it felt like life was pulling you backward. You asked, why did this have to leave? Why does it feel like everything I care about slips through my fingers? But here's a truth that only hindsight can reveal. You never truly lost what was meant for you. Romans 8:28 reminds us, "All things work together for good to those who love God." Not some things, not just the blessings. All things, including the things that walked away. See when you're chosen. What feels like loss is often just divine alignment in disguise. At the time, it stung. You didn't understand why certain people left, why doors closed so abruptly, why what you thought was your future suddenly collapsed. But now looking back, can you see it? The doors that slammed shut were actually protecting you from walking into places too small for your destiny. The people who left weren't abandoning you. They were being removed because they couldn't carry the weight of where God was taking you. Think about Misty Copeland, rejected over and over, told she didn't have the right body for ballet. Each no felt like a loss. But every rejection was clearing her path to become the first African-American principal dancer at the American Ballet Theater. Chosen one. If everything you thought you wanted had stayed, you wouldn't be standing where you are now. Stronger, wiser, elevated. That relationship you prayed to keep. It would have drained you. That job you begged for. It would have boxed in your purpose. That opportunity you thought was the pinnacle. It would have limited your growth. John 10:28 says, "No one can snatch them out of my hand. What's truly yours by divine right is untouchable." So anything that left wasn't stolen, it was released. And here's the deeper revelation. You didn't just survive those losses, you learned to thank God for them, because now you know. Every ending was making room for something greater. Every closed chapter was protection disguised as disappointment. Look at Keanu Reeves. A man who endured unimaginable personal loss. Yet instead of being defined by grief, he became a symbol of quiet strength, humility, and resilience. His story proves that what leaves your life doesn't define you. How you rise afterward does. Chosen one. You no longer carry the illusion of loss. You've learned to release with grace, to trust that if something exits your life, it's because it wasn't equipped to walk with your calling. Ecclesiastes 3:6 says, "A time to keep and a time to throw away." And you mastered that sacred timing. So here's your reminder. Stop looking back at what's gone with regret. Start looking forward with expectation, because now you've made space. And what's coming? Peace, clarity. Divine connections could never have fit into a life cluttered by what was never meant to stay. You've already won, chosen one. Not because nothing left you, but because everything that left only made you lighter for the journey ahead. Walk like it's already yours. Chosen one. Take a deep breath. If you've made it this far, you already know this wasn't just another message. This was a confirmation, a reminder of something your spirit has always known, even when your mind tried to doubt it. You've already won, not because life was easy, not because everyone supported you, but because you stood firm when everything tried to make you fold. The battles didn't break you, they revealed you. The losses didn't empty you, they positioned you. And the silence you once feared, it became the space where God whispered, "It's already yours." So now, chosen one, there's only one thing left to do. Walk like it. Walk like the doors are already open. Walk like the blessings have already been dispatched. Walk like heaven has already stamped, approved over your life, because it has. Hebrews 10:35 says, "Do not throw away your confidence, it will be richly rewarded." This is your season to move, not from doubt, but from divine confidence. And as you step forward, remember, you don't need to explain your journey. You don't need to convince anyone of your calling. Your existence is proof. Your survival is proof. Your peace, after everything you've endured, is proof. So before you go, if this message stirred something deep within you, don't let it stop here. Declare it. Drop a $9.99 in the comments right now. Not just as engagement, but as a prophetic act. Because 999 marks completion. The old cycles are done. The waiting season is over. You're not becoming. You've arrived, and if this word blessed you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who needs to remember who they are. You never know whose life you'll touch, just by passing the light forward, chosen one. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of walking fully in what's already been ordained for you. So keep your head high, keep your spirit anchored, and never forget, you are chosen, you are covered, you are unstoppable. Until next time, keep walking like it's already yours, because it is. God bless you always.